The earth provides for us if we know where to look. And it has, for me too, it has really come to the forefront these last 2 years because from my perspective, everything is just a result of malnutrition and toxicity. And so clay is kind of hitting both of those things because, as I mentioned, it's actually giving us a bit of nourishment. It's not a food, but because of the way it works, the mechanism, the cationic exchange, it's actually giving us a tiny bit of good minerals while it's grabbing the toxins.
From the Weston A. Price Foundation, welcome to the Wise Traditions podcast for wise traditions in food, farming, and the healing arts. We are your source for scientific knowledge and traditional wisdom to help you achieve optimal health.
Hey, Hilda here. Many of us are aware of the benefits of clay masks and even clay baths for the health of our skin. But did you know that clay can gently detox us on the inside of our bodies as well? This is episode 372, and our guest today is Victor Cozzetto. Victor is a nutritionist and a certified Emotion Code Practitioner with a focus on holistic wellness. Throughout the years, Victor has fine-tuned the use of a number of tools to heal the gut and mind through detoxification. Victor explains today that clay is much more than dirt. He describes it in detail, a volcanic ash with a special structure that enables it to be a transducer to convert one form of energy to another. In other words, clay works to help rebalance our body's own electric frequencies. Victor also goes over its many detoxing properties, along with the fact that clay can actually nourish the body with its trace minerals and electrolytes. In short, clay, Victor explains, is a truly ancient earth medicine. Before we begin the conversation, I want to invite you to follow us on social media and other platforms so that we can connect with each other and mutually support one another. The Weston A. Price Foundation is on Instagram at Weston A. Price, on Telegram and MeWe as Weston A. Price Foundation, and even on YouTube. Just look up Weston A. Price Foundation. You can connect with us on all of those platforms everywhere you go. And if you want an even more direct link, sign up for our email list so we can stay in close contact and alert you to actionable events and things going on in your area. Just go to the homepage of our website, westonaprice.org, and click on the yellow button that says Join the Email List. I'll put a link in the show description to make this even easier. And Earth Runners. A shout out to our sponsors, Earth Runners. It's time to incorporate more simple, nature-based lifestyle practices and outsource less of our life to modern technology. One aspect of modern life that we don't often think about is how our shoes affect the ways in which we interact with the earth. Our ancestors were virtually always grounded, connected to the earth. It's only been since the advent of modern insulating soles that we have lost this connection to the ground. Our ancestors lived in constant connection with the earth by going barefoot or wearing leather-soled moccasins or sandals, which kept them grounded. Connecting the feet to the earth is a practice called earthing or grounding, I'm sure you know, that allows the body to take in electrons, which helps to restore our natural electric state, and to enjoy the myriad of benefits felt while taking in the elements like our ancestors did. But these days we're missing that, and that's why Earth Runner sandals feature a new type of way to connect to the ground, featuring a copper earthing plug and conductive laces on their huarache-style footwear. Basically, Earth Runners are committed to giving us the most minimalist, natural, and grounded shoe experience we've ever had, so we can restore our natural connection with the earth via earthing to enjoy the benefits our ancestors did. So go to Earth Runners and learn more about this minimalist sole that they've designed for healthy full range of foot movement, which improves everything upstream, so to speak, in the body. Rewild and reconnect with Earth Runner sandals at earthrunners.com and use the code WISE for 10% off. Again, that's earthrunners.com and the code WISE for 10% off at checkout. This is Holistic Hilda, and you're listening to Wise Traditions. Welcome to Wise Traditions, Victor.
Hi, Hilda. It's so great to be back. Thank you for having me.
Well, we had a lovely conversation about kefir or kefir before.
Yes, yes.
And
indeed.
this time I wanted to talk with you about something else that you're very passionate about clay. So let's start with your own first experience with it.
Sure, sure. My first physical experience, meaning beyond research, I had learned and heard about it through studying shamanism and things like that. But my first physical experience, and I want to say internally, I think everybody knows, like topically, they think of it like face masks and stuff. But my first experience, I used it internally to actually help me with constipation. And this was just before I stepped into kefir, which just kind of perfected my bowel movement. But personally, and I think many people don't realize that clay can actually be used for constipation or diarrhea. And then my mother had great success with it to stop diarrhea or to greatly improve her situation.
I'd heard that it would just help if you had diarrhea, not if you had constipation, but it works for either symptom.
Yes, right, exactly. Because it's not, I think most people just imagine that clay just dries us out, right? Even when people use it topically, they imagine, oh, it's like tightening my skin, it's drying everything. But that's not exactly what's going on. There's much more that's going on with the clay.
Well, because you've done extensive research, help us enter in right now into Clay 101.
Okay, sure.
And help us understand, what it does, what are some of its properties and what it does for our health.
A lot of people understand, they think of clay as dirt, right? It comes from the earth.
Yes.
But it's different from dirt or soil or sand. It is formed from volcanic activity. And actually, it's more closely related to like quartz crystal, okay, which you don't often hear about. But it's a very special structure. You might hear people talk about it as like an aluminosilicate or something like that. But it's a very special structure, and it actually contains a lot of different minerals and elements. And there are many kinds of clay. So when I'm speaking about clay, I'm really talking about a bentonite clay. That's what I use mostly. There are many good clays out there, so there's no prejudice here. There are really so many great clays all over the world. Just about everyone has access to a clay. Probably when you were in Australia, you probably stumbled across people talking about clay that they have down there. Mm-hmm. If you go to Africa, South America, Europe, the US, whatever. But bentonite clay is what you usually see, being sold everywhere. And again, it comes from this volcanic activity in the earth, and it has a very special structure. It actually gives us minerals like magnesium, potassium, calcium, etc. So it will give you some minerals or some electrolytes. So I think your audience is very familiar with the idea of electrolytes and how important minerals are in that sense. And so they actually help us electrically. And the way clay does this is when it comes into our body or even topically, the clay structure itself has a very, very strong negative charge. And so it holds on to positive ions. And so, for example, things like magnesium, calcium, potassium that I mentioned, the clay will be holding that. And when it comes into your body and toxins are present, like lead, mercury, etc., the clay prefers those because they have a stronger positive charge. So it does what we call this cationic exchange. It swaps out. It's like, oh, I want that mercury ion. So here, I'm going to give your body a magnesium ion instead. So it's really cool, right? We have this twofold benefit because we get rid of a toxin and we get a mineral.
So is this why some people call clay a binder?
Yes.
Because it's holding on to the toxin or the chemical or element that we don't want in the body. It holds on to it and it squirts it out of the body. Is that right?
Yes, yeah, exactly. It gets carried out. Another reason that I really like clay, and the word binding is a pretty good word. It's a kind of neutral word. Like a lot of people are familiar with the idea of chelation, right? For like if you get like in a trauma situation, right? If you get poisoned, you're probably going to go to the hospital. You're going to be given some very powerful chelation agent to suck up the poison as fast as possible. Now, clay is not actually a chelator, because chelation, when it grabs a toxin, it actually creates a new toxic compound, or a compound that is often toxic, but less toxic. Our detox system in our body works this way, right? We go through different stages where we kind of like reduce the toxins step by step, and then we get them out.
Mm-hmm.
But clay does this kind of, in most of what's going on with clay, it does this cationic exchange, and then it's just holding, like kind of like a magnet, right? So it's a little bit more, it can be a lot more gentle for detoxing.
I wonder who first thought of it, because I would equate clay, or the use of clay, as, like you mentioned earlier, a topical application. I could picture it, yes, for my face, or if I had a rash on my arm, putting it there, but I wouldn't think of ingesting it. I wonder when that practice began. Do you have any idea?
I think it would be impossible to trace perfectly, because the animals were doing it before us.
Ah.
For example, there's thousands of years of history that we do know of. And to give you like one of the nefarious motivations were like royalty trying to protect themselves from poisoning.
Mm-hmm.
So they would take clay with all their meals, like going back like 1,000 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
In every culture, we'll see that. You'll see, for example, in the animal kingdom, I believe it's the macaw, one of the tropical birds, that first goes and consumes clay so it can then go consume a certain type of berry that is actually would be toxic to it. And it's like a seasonal type of thing that it does. So it's quite amazing, because we see different animals, like even elephants will have like their favorite places to go for clay.
Ah.
Like they'll prefer one area over another.
Oh, that conjures up nice memories for me when I went to Kenya. And I think in Zimbabwe too, I was able to see some elephants literally like dust bathing themselves. And they must have known exactly what they needed, like you're saying, and gone to the right clay hole, so to speak.
Yes, exactly. They really know, right? So animals, they seem to know much more than us instinctively, and probably through some trial and error also, the way we learn.
And what about, don't pregnant women sometimes get a craving for clay or dirt? Don't they call that condition pica or something?
Oh, that's interesting. I had forgotten the term for that. I haven't heard that in a very long time. But yes, indeed, the women's intuition seems to really be at a peak during pregnancy, right? They get all of these cravings for these things that the body knows it needs.
Yes.
And this is very good. I think clay is fantastic during that period of time, because there's another thing. Women will tend, especially for the first pregnancy, they will tend to kind of dump a lot of their toxins into the first child.
Yes.
So this is really good if we can prevent some of that. Of course, the mother is also dumping everything else to assist the child, right, from her own body.
So we want to return to kind of this instinctive use of clay. And I think in this day and age, I'm happy to report, at least in the circles I run in, this whole pandemic-y time has made people think, what is more natural? What am I going to turn to shore up my body's health? And a lot of people do see the benefits of the earth itself. And that's where clay comes from.
Yes, absolutely. I love to talk about that, the idea that the earth itself gives us so many things to help us heal. Because again, there are actually many types of clay, and they can be used in combination. I'll use like a combination of 3 different clays even. So the earth is amazing. And even Price even noticed it and wrote a little bit about clay that he observed being used. So yeah, absolutely. The earth provides for us if we know where to look. And it has, for me too, it has really come to the forefront these last 2 years, because, from my perspective, everything is just a result of malnutrition and toxicity. And so clay is kind of hitting both of those things, because as I mentioned, it's actually giving us a bit of nourishment. It's not a food, but because of the way it works, the mechanism, the cationic exchange, it's actually giving us a tiny bit of good minerals while it's grabbing the toxins.
Yes, it surprised me when you said when it grabs the mercury, it leaves magnesium in its place. And I was like, oh, that is a good exchange. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's really, really nice. So, I'm not suggesting that we can resolve our nutrient deficiencies by consuming clay. So you're right, we want to follow a Western priced diet to the best of our ability, but clay certainly does help us to augment that a little bit. I think many of your listeners would be aware that some people, again, in the wise traditions, they would use clay even when cooking. They would put a little clay like in their bread. And again, this is to help make sure that, or to help clean the food before we're even consuming it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's got a long history. And of course, we use clay pots and, pottery in general, right? So clay has been in use for a long time, and for more so than just its convenience. We were very aware of its, I could say, medicinal properties, although that's not exactly, it's the detox properties. But I could say medicinal because some people, like we know about like the healing waters and things. A lot of those are like clay baths. Same thing, because you can absorb a lot of minerals topically. Again, things like magnesium.
That's exactly where I wanted to go next. What conditions do people have that would have them consider using clay as a help to restoring their health?
Oh, wow. That is a very long list. Let me start with the most obvious is people use topically, like for facials, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or over their whole body. And an interesting thing, again, just to relate back to how we opened this about the idea of hydration or drying out. The clay, because at first you're hydrating clay. So clay has a very special relationship with water. And so it will actually help to hydrate your skin. When you make now it's tightening and pulling, but it's not drying it out, right? You don't end up, your skin feels wonderful and rejuvenated after you've worn a clay mask. This same idea is happening when you take clay internally. Although when we do it internally, of course, we prepare it very differently. We're really hydrating it at like a 100-to-1 ratio with water. So you're just drinking this water with some clay in it. And so that idea of hydrating the clay first is very important. And so you've got the topical uses for skin. Mm-hmm. Internally, if I jump now to the opposite end of the spectrum, let's go to the extreme examples where I've got people that have had their ileum removed, like part of their intestines removed, have had a gallbladder removed. These people might have issues with what we call bile acid diarrhea or bile acid malabsorption, like IBS, IBD, or BAM, bad. These people have diarrhea that they cannot stop.
Oh.
Clay is as good as any medication we have for helping these people because it's very good at absorbing excess bile acids. It's fantastic for this. And so a lot of my clients are people in these extreme states of unwellness, right, where they've had surgical procedures, and clay can be a really great help for that.
Wow.
Yeah, and then everything in between, really. I mean, yeah.
It sounds so wonderful. And again, well, I shouldn't say again because I haven't said it yet. But I've interviewed people who talk about how the earth has healing crystals or stones and that they can help mitigate the non-native electromagnetic frequencies that we're exposed to. So man creates artificial frequencies that are damaging to the body, and the earth offers healing natural frequencies that are good for us. So yes. In this way, this story of clay is resonating with me.
Oh man, I'm so glad that you mentioned that because, right, we have not discussed the extremely complex electromagnetic properties of clay.
No, we haven't.
So you just led into a really wonderful hornet's nest, actually, in a way, because there's so many directions.
Wait, how can there be a wonderful hornet's nest?
Yeah, right. Well, all creatures are wonderful in their own way, right? But anyway, clay has very, very complex special electromagnetic properties, and it's because of its relationship with water. For example, there are topical uses of clay where you would put like a poultice you would make like a magma. You would put like almost like an inch thick layer of clay over like a wounded area or a fractured bone or over your kidneys or your liver and such. And this increases, it's beyond just this topical absorption, because you've got an electromagnetic field that's created by the whole of that clay poultice that is now acting on your body. And the other thing related to this is, as you mentioned, there are these natural frequencies, right? And the idea with crystals is the structure of a crystal lattice is something, the size is resonating or similar or in line with or in tune with frequencies that are good for us. Mm-hmm. So that's how you can start to kind of relate these things when you talk about crystals or anything that is working with a crystalline structure, and you start talking about sound healing, vibrational healing, etc. You'll see that clay, like if you go and you search clay as a transducer, this idea of clay converting one form of energy to another, right? So again, this is related to crystals.
Coming up, Victor explains how clay is one of the oldest forms of earth medicine. Even animals instinctively use it. He also goes over clay's special relationship to water.
You're listening to the Wise Traditions podcast from the Weston A. Price Foundation. We pause now to recognize our sponsors.
Paleo Valley. This company is not just known for its beef sticks. They offer a wide variety of products, including their turmeric complex. Turmeric complex soothes joint and muscle discomfort, banishes brain fog, and protects against DNA damage and more. And why is Paleo Valley's complex a step above the competition? Because Paleo Valley turmeric complex contains whole food turmeric instead of isolated curcumin. Turmeric in whole food form has been found to be more powerful than isolated curcumin, while also containing nearly 300 other beneficial components. Curcumin is powerful in and of itself, but research has found that turmeric with curcumin completely removed still contains incredible health benefits, likely from the other nutritional compounds. So, Paleo Valley includes organic, whole food turmeric. What Paleo Valley also knows is that turmeric, to become bioavailable, needs a soluble fat to be absorbed properly. So that's why their turmeric complex includes coconut oil and black pepper, which has been shown to increase absorption of turmeric by 2,000%. They've also included in their complex organic ginger, rosemary, cloves, which have additional benefits like brain support, healthy inflammation response, immune support, and healthy digestion and blood sugar levels as well. Paleo Valley, you guys, is a company that I trust wholeheartedly. So go to their website and check out this product and their other good stuff too. It's paleovalley.com and use the code WISE for 15% off at checkout. paleovalley.com and the code word WISE. And speaking of amazing products, Optimal Carnivore has a new product just released. It's called Brain Nourish. It's a revolutionary new product that has combined grass-fed beef brain and lion's mane mushrooms in a groundbreaking formula. It is the ultimate whole food nootropic to build a better brain. These two ancestral superfoods have been used for centuries to improve brain function and overall mental well-being. They are now available for the first time together in convenient capsules. Studies have shown that both ingredients, the beef brain and the lion's mane mushrooms, are remarkable at improving cognition and brain health, both in the short and the long term. They are guaranteed to have your brain firing on all cylinders for supreme focus, elevated mood, improved memory, greater clarity, and enhanced creativity. And there are so many other benefits too, for health, vitality, and longevity. Each serving has 1,500 milligrams of organic lion's mane and 1,500 milligrams of beef brain. They only use 100% real mushrooms, organic fruiting bodies which are rigorously tested for active compounds. The beef brain is sourced from the highest quality regenerative farms in New Zealand. The mission at Optimal Carnivore is to make it easy for people to consume the most nutrient-dense foods on the planet. And they also plant one tree for every product sold, which helps the environment. So check out their grass-fed organ complex that contains 9 organs, their grass-fed liver product, and the new brain Nourish. Go to amazon.com/optimalcarnivore and use the code Weston10 to receive 10% off all products. Again, that's amazon.com/optimalcarnivore and the code Weston10. This is Holistic Hilda, and you're listening to Wise Traditions.
We can go a lot of different directions here. And I mentioned topically, but again, also internally. Clay will also help to detox radiation. It will shield you. It will grab like radioactive cesium in your body and shield you from it until it carries it out of your body. So there's a lot going on. It's very complex.
It is complex. And even you said there are different types of it. So I was surprised when you said sometimes you'll take 3 different types. What are you doing and why?
Yes, because so I mentioned there is the bentonite clay. Within a bentonite clay, so a bentonite clay is probably the most common in the world. And it's something, one way of looking at it technically is like it's a triple layer clay. Clay forms layers. Like when you take clay, for example, when I drink it internally, and let's say I have just a half a teaspoon of clay in a glass of water and I drink that clay is going to spread out and like coat most of my intestines. And it's going to help protect my intestines. It's going to help them to heal. It's going to help to absorb all of the different things that are going on. And the 2 most common types of clay within bentonite, you'll sometimes hear people say a calcium bentonite clay or a sodium bentonite clay.
Mm-hmm.
And this has to do with the ratio of calcium and sodium that are in the clay. Now, there are still many other things. There's going to be magnesium, potassium, many other elements there. But in this case, when they're using this nomenclature, they're talking about how when that clay was formed, again, right, it was formed by volcanoes eons and eons ago, the calcium or sodium became a large component of its structure. And for internal use, we usually use a calcium-based clay. It tends to be a little bit more gentle because it doesn't swell. You may hear this term also, this idea of swelling, like expanding in size, whereas a sodium bentonite clay will expand or swell in size. This is just the bentonite. There are other clays like elite clays, which spread out. They're like a dual layer clay. Again, there are many other types. Wherever you go around the world, even if you're just talking about bentonite clay, it's going to be a little bit different all over the world because there was different volcanic activity that incorporated some different minerals. And so those different clays will have different affinities for different toxins. So one clay might grab lead more aggressively, and another clay might grab mercury more aggressively. So that's where the differences come in. And also, they'll get rid of parasites, mycotoxins. So like you're familiar with a huge broad spectrum of toxins, unfortunately, that we are ingesting or, through the air, through our food, right?
Yes.
And so clay will grab onto a lot of them. And the difference in the different clays is like what their preferred diet is, so to say, or what their affinity is, right, for the different toxins. That's what it comes down to. Also, and I'll mention another thing, you want a really fine clay so that it hydrates really easily. Again, I don't have any very specific recommendations because there's great clay all over the world.
Yeah.
But I usually tell my clients, look, you can get it pretty cheap on Amazon. Like Redmond's clay has been used for a very, very long time. It's a very nice clay. It's actually kind of in the middle. It's like a almost 50-50 sodium calcium blend. I don't want to use the word blend because it sounds like it was manufactured. It was not.
Oh my gosh, this is so fascinating. Yeah, I remember when I traveled to Israel at one point, I purchased some clay from the Dead Sea or something. And I just imagine what the earth has to offer us is so healing, even if we're not quite sure what toxins we're trying to extricate or what necessarily we're trying to resolve in terms of a skin problem. But it seems like the earth would know what we need.
Yes, absolutely. And, and I try to tell my clients to use their intuition, right? So you experiment a little bit, you try You see how things feel, right? You adjust dosages. You adjust, like, right, even the types of clay that you use. The earth provides so much. It's amazing.
And for any skeptics out there, think about the health of a child. The kid who is putting his hand in his mouth or he's out crawling in the dirt. Kids on farms are often healthier than kids in cities, and it may be their very contact with the earth.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I believe that 100%. The more dirt the kids get in their mouths, and the more they have their hands and feet in the dirt, the healthier they're going to be. There are so many benefits. And there are many experts on clay around the world, but even they cannot say that they understand clay 100%. I think this is something that all of us often forget. We want to imagine that we understand very deeply, like it's going to give us comfort, but we're still woefully ignorant, right? We're really still infants, and we're going to continue to learn so much more. But we can already see our ancestors for thousands of years, and the creatures around us have been showing us how magnificent clay is. And intuition, like you mentioned earlier about like pregnant women will crave clay sometimes, and I think this is really showing the power of the intuition, the instinct.
Absolutely. I know I personally am trying to earth more. And by that, I mean putting my bare feet on the ground, because I know, just like the clay, the earth has negative ions that my body needs to absorb.
Mm-hmm.
And I can offload the positive charge my body has from all of the EMFs and other toxins in my body. So I'm like giving it what's a burden to me, and I'm taking on the good stuff it has to offer.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like our bodies are a battery. And so the clay is also helping with the electrical health of our body, right? It works synergistically with all of that. So it's so true, right? We have to always take a holistic perspective. And actually, the more holistic we are, it actually leads us to a better understanding, right? So instead of viewing the clay as just this mechanical thing that is just grabbing toxins, when we take a more holistic perspective, we realize that, wow, the clay is also helping us hydrate. Wow, it's actually nourishing us. Wow, it's actually absorbing radiation. Wow, it's actually giving me like a type of electromagnetic shield in my gut, right? So the more we learn, the more holistic we become, the more we open our mind, the more we are able to understand and appreciate what all of these different things do for us.
100%. And I'm so encouraged by what you've shared, but I have to ask, are there any drawbacks? You've made clay sound so wonderful. It must have some drawbacks, doesn't it? Or does it not?
I think the biggest drawback is understanding how to use it. And I think this applies to a lot of things, right? People abuse things. And so, for example, let me give an example of activated charcoal, which is another wonderful thing from the earth. And that's great for food poisoning. You can carry capsules of activated charcoal in your bag. It's very convenient. If you get food poisoning, you swallow that. Now, clay is not really to be used that way. Clay really needs to be hydrated because it has a very important relationship with water. And so for example, I tell my clients, you take like a teaspoon of clay, put it in like 2 cups of water in a glass jar. So this is another thing, again, knowing how to use it. You don't put it in metal, you don't put it in plastic where it's going to absorb toxins, right? So you put it in a glass jar, you shake that up really good, and you let that sit overnight, or at least let it hydrate for a few hours. And then you avoid any potentially negative things, right? You want the clay to be good and hydrated, and then you can drink it. So understanding where to get good clay, and again, most of it is good, right? I mean, the animals are out there running around the world, but we do need to be more careful because we are in an ever increasingly toxic world, unfortunately. So you do want to make sure you got a good clean clay, something that's reputable. And then you want to make sure you're not putting it in plastic containers or metal containers, or even using metal spoons, right? So you're just going to use glass, wood, things that are inert. And then you want to make sure it's hydrated, and then you know how to take it. You don't just jump in and guzzle 2 glasses at once. You drink a little bit, see how you feel, work with your body, learn to listen to your own body, etc. Right? So there are pitfalls, but like anything else, right? I mean, you could die from water poisoning if you drink too much water. So it's just a matter of having the knowledge. And I have like a 1-page guide, that kind of lays that out to make it easy for people.
Well, Victor, I consider you now, I dub you now the Clay King.
Well, thank you. Like, I don't know if I'm the king, but I'm definitely maybe a king cheerleader for Clay.
Maybe you're in the court. You're in the court.
I'm in the
there.
court. That sounds good.
The royal court. But so this is great. You've given us a lot of information about what clay can do for us and how to get started with it and the pitfalls if we don't take it carefully. In other words, finding a good source of clay and knowing how to take it. But is there anyone for whom clay might not be beneficial?
So there is something that you have to be a little careful with. If you are someone that is taking a lot of medication, you've got to keep clay away from that because it can interfere with certain medications, because most medication is highly toxic and the clay is going to grab that. So if you are dependent on certain, and not all medications, but if you are dependent on certain things, you're going to want to make sure that the clay is not interfering. And usually this is very easy because in most cases, just keeping things a couple of hours apart, it makes it no problem. But it is something that you're going to want to look into. You're going to want to speak to your doctor or whoever your healthcare practitioners, do your own research. That's like the biggest thing. Because like, as I mentioned before, right, I work with people that are, they've had parts of the digestive system removed, okay, and they're using clay.
Mm.
If you've had like kidney failure, for example, you might want to be careful before you just jump into clay. So there are certain extreme conditions, and again, if you've got extreme dependencies on medication, you want to be careful. Right? So don't just dive in blindly.
Good point. Now, it surprised me when you said to wait a couple hours and then you might be okay from when you take your pharmaceutical drug to when you take the clay, because I kind of thought clay could grab anything. In other words, it doesn't have to be something new in the bloodstream or in your system. I was hoping it could grab toxins that have kind of settled in different parts of the body. Will it go that far, do you think?
Yes. Okay. So that you lead to another very cool insight. So the reason why 2 hours is usually okay is because we'll say like the drugs will get in and will have gotten to where they need to go and are doing their thing and they're out of the bloodstream, because clay, while the clay does not go into your bloodstream, it will do some detoxification of your blood. It will actually absorb, right? So as the blood is circulating, through your digestive tract, I mean, not in, but, as it comes close, right? The digestive tissue, the intestines are extremely thin and they're being nourished by blood. And the clay can actually pull some toxins through the walls, so to say, right? So there is some, not everything. That's why we use other detox agents, but it can pull some things out of the blood. So the idea is take your meds, make sure your meds have already gotten to where they need to go, right? You've consumed the medications internally, they've gotten absorbed into the bloodstream, and they've been delivered to wherever they're supposed to be delivered to. And then you take your clay and you're okay.
And is clay recommended as a kind of long-term protocol? Like, are you going to take clay the rest of your life? That's
a very good question. Yes. So this is the beauty of clay. It's one of the things that you can use forever, but there's not a set thing. So let's say, for example, you have a serious issue and then you start taking clay and you could go up to taking like 3 tablespoons a day if you're using this as a really heavy duty protocol for some specific issue. And you wouldn't stay on such a protocol, right? So there are some protocols that are short term. And then later on, like for me, myself, I will just prepare my clay and I will take a sip of clay, or maybe 2 or 3 sips in the morning or at night, depending on what's going on. Maybe if I had a really crazy meal and then I want to just make sure I'm going to be okay, give myself a little protection, I'll just take a few sips of the clay. And I can do that forever. I can do it every day if I want. I can keep it as a shield. But just monitor yourself. See how your bowel movement is. If your bowel movement remains perfect, well, there's no need to stop, right? If you feel good, keep doing what you're doing. Trust your intuition also.
Yes, I love it when Dr. Tommy John says N equals 1. In other words, study how things work on you. Observe how your body is reacting to things and what it wants, because you are unique and you know your body better than anyone else.
Yes.
It is good to turn to folks for some guidance, but that doesn't mean that you can't listen to see what the body might be trying to tell you and how it's responding to things.
Right, exactly. Like I like to tell my clients, I was like, listen, let's assume I'm the smartest guy on the planet and I have all knowledge that's ever been available to humans. I still can't give you better answers than your intuition can. Right? Because I'm not you, right? So the intuition, as we learn to tap into that, is beyond any intellectual power, because we change day by day. So 100%, I agree with you there, Hilda. I just agree with you completely. We have to learn our own bodies, be willing to listen to them and work with it, adjust, adapt, because we're not the same person from one moment to the next. We had an ailment one moment, for example, and then it's not there anymore. Then you adjust. But clay is really nice because it is something that you can keep in your system. You can keep it in your routine, or at least keep it in your medicine cabinet, so to say. So I always have it on hand.
I was just thinking, I bet also our ancestors, those who lived this wise traditions lifestyle, they might not have even needed as much clay because they were in contact with the earth, and we are just living in such sterile environments in these little boxes. And so we need to reconnect with the earth, right, one way or another.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's so much there. And especially these last couple of years, we didn't talk about that, but I could even go into specifics there. So I've got clients that had more specific needs for clay topically and internally because of concerns about heavy metal toxicity from various sources and other toxicity. And again, you're right. And the whole idea of using it, it connects you more to the earth. It makes you feel more self-empowered when you use these natural things. And it's cheap. Clay is cheap. This is another really good benefit. It's probably one of the most cost-effective things that we can add into our diet. It's not expensive.
Wow. Well, I appreciate all the ways this Clay 101 class has really, really blessed me, and I'm sure it's going to bless the listener. And I think we will definitely make sure that a link to your site is in the show notes in the description so folks can come to you and find out about that one-page kind of guide that you have on clay.
Oh, great.
Yeah, so thank you. But I do want to ask you one last question, the one I like to pose at the end. If the listener could only do one thing to improve their health, what would you recommend that they do?
Oh, wow. Well, I guess since this is about clay, I would have to say, start experimenting with the clay, get it into your routine, or as I mentioned, at least get it into your medicine cabinet. Just go out there. Maybe it's like $10 on Amazon. You get a little bottle of this Redmond's clay and just start playing with it topically, internally, and see how you feel. Allow yourself to get comfortable with the idea because it's just such a powerful, flexible thing. You can use it, for bug bites and wounds and just so many different things. So just get it. Just get the clay. Get some clay. Start to play with it. It's actually pretty fun to play with. But I mean, play with it for your health.
I love it. It's time to go a little bit crazy.
That's good. Oh, that's a nice term. Right? Very good. Very good. I'll need to give you credit for that when I use it now.
Thank you, Victor. Well, this has been great. I'm really thankful that you came on the show today, and we wish you all the best.
Oh, thank you, Hilda. Same to you and to all your listeners. Thank you again for having me. It's been a pleasure, as always.
Our guest today was Victor Cozzetto. Visit his website, vitagenics.me, for his clay information sheet and other resources. And I'm Hilda Labrada Gore. You can find me at holistichilda.com. And for the transcript for this podcast, visit our website, westinaprice.org, and click on the podcast page. And now for a recent review from Apple Podcasts. Wisdom for the Times. Kicker Time has this to say: God bless you. Keep speaking truth in these troubling times. Your podcast and foundation are wisdom and hope for those who truly have ears to hear. Kicker Time, this means so much to us. We look at these reviews, they warm our hearts. We're working hard over here, and it's nice to know that the podcast has resonated with you. If you'd like to, you are also welcome to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and give us as many stars as you like. I'll also put the link in the show notes so you can do it with ease. And thank you so much for listening, my friend. Stay well, and remember that all shall be well, and all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well.
On behalf of the Weston A. Price Foundation, thanks for listening. We have many free resources to support you on your health journey. Visit westonaprice.org to find podcasts, articles, videos, and more. You can also find a local chapter near you for help in finding sources of great food. We invite you to support the Foundation's mission of education, research, and activism by becoming a member. Thanks again, and take care. Wise Traditions is a project of the Weston A. Price Foundation for wise traditions in food, farming, and the healing arts. The content on this podcast is provided for informational purposes only and is not intended to substitute for the advice provided by your doctor or other healthcare professional. It is not intended to be, nor does it constitute healthcare or medical advice.